Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to another exciting edition of the Stingray Show. Once again, I am your host, Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, along with my co-host,
B-Ham. We're only a few weeks away from football. You guys better get excited.
Yes, we're actually, 15 days away? This is pretty close.
It's longer than that. I don't know. Yeah, it's about 15 days away.
Yeah, I mean, so it's right there. But
counting the very first game, yeah. But I'm looking towards that first Saturday.
Yes.
The 2nd of September.
Well, how are you doing, though? I mean, obviously we did the show early last week so that you could go out of town.
Yeah,
Where all
I
did you go?
went to Kentucky for a wedding last week. Left Wednesday, got back Sunday. My cousin Tanner Brandenburg, who's a huge UK fan, he and his twin brother Tyler got married. Well, they didn't get married. Tanner got married to his fiance Mallory, and we.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I kind of poor wording there a little bit. But, yeah, I enjoyed it. Had a great time in Kentucky. But, boy, let me tell you, these fans, they're optimistic about their football team this season. It's not only about the Kentucky basketball, but, you know, they're always excited about that. But, you know, this football team they've got this fall, they're thinking like Stingray. They think that they're going to surprise and maybe win the East.
Who knows?
A lot of them are saying it's the East, win the East or bust.
Right. How excited are they about Mark Stoops up there? Because, you know, for a long time there, he was on the hot seat pretty much.
Yeah,
Don't you
well,
agree?
they want to see him do better. They don't want to just go to the, you know, Dollar General Bowl or whichever bowl, you know, the Birmingham Bowl. They want bigger things. They want to get to a New Year's Day Bowl, things like that. So, you know, Kentucky fans are happy with what he did last year, I believe. They had a pretty bad start to the season, but ended up finishing strong to beat Louisville. That was big. I mean, the very last game, that was a huge statement they made. So we'll see how they can build off of that.
So how do you think they're going to do, starting, because we're going to start with Kentucky today, and then we're going to move into the Florida Gators. So first off, how do you think Kentucky is going to do, and especially with that rematch game of going to Hattiesburg to take on Southern Miss?
I think that Kentucky's going to get that game this year. I don't think Southern Miss will beat them twice, whether it's in Starkville, Lexington, or on the Moon. Starkville, I mean, Southern Miss, you've heard, has had a good team this year. So, what do you think about that game? Because you're the one that's been talking to the Southern Miss people.
They're worried about a quarterback and replacing Nick Mullins. That's going to be the key for them. They return a lot of great starters on both sides of the ball, but they lack that quarterback experience, where, as you know, on at any level of college football, having a quarterback is key. Am I wrong there?
No, not at all. I mean, the quarterbacks always is the pilot of your team. You know, everything's going to run through the quarterback. If you don't have good quarterback play, it's difficult to win.
Yes.
So I tend to think that that's what helped Southern Miss in the opener last season, was having senior Nick Mullins, who's actually from Hoover, Alabama.
Yes.
Played for Spain Park. He was able to catapult that team over a much improved Kentucky team last year.
Yeah.
This year, I think it's going to be Steven Johnson and Kentucky that's able to overcome a Southern Miss team with a young quarterback.
But, you know, it's always exciting down in Hattiesburg when they bring in an SEC team. They had the record for the most attendance ever at a Southern Miss game when they brought in Mississippi State in 2015. And believe it or not, Mississippi State just re-signed another series with Southern Miss in 2019, 2023, and 2024.
So where are they playing in 19?
In Starkville. And then
they'll do a 2-for-1.
Yep.
Okay.
And Southern Miss is getting a big payday to come to Starkville too, so that's going to be quite interesting.
Okay.
But where do you see some trouble marks for Kentucky though?
Well, the first one is going to be Florida.
Yeah.
How many have they lost to Florida? About 30 straight, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it's close to 30. I think it nears around the year I was born. So Kentucky always has trouble with Florida. It's at home this year, but I'm never going to pick them to win that game until I see it happen.
Right.
So that's going to be one. Otherwise, their early schedule's pretty manageable.
Mm-hmm.
They could get a win on the road at South Carolina, which I don't think they can do.
You don't?
I think they can make it all the way to the bye week in mid-October at either 5-1 or 4-2.
Mm-hmm.
Then comes. Just be honest. Nobody in the East has that hard schedule. Because you look, there's a lot of winnable games. The spot I see them having trouble is Florida, because no matter Florida's record, Kentucky just can't beat them.
Yeah.
So Mississippi State, that one will be a little difficult. They won last year, so I look for Mississippi State being at home.
And it's homecoming.
Homecoming, to come in and get that win. So I don't think they'll beat Mississippi State. Tennessee, that's a toss-up. Ole Miss, they've got, even the two games they play in the West are they're winnable.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mississippi State, after losing to them last year, don't think I'm picking State to lose that game. But could they win it? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Kentucky, they avoid Bama, LSU, Auburn. They could be going into Atlanta undefeated for the SEC championship.
Who, Kentucky?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I don't know. Georgia's going to be tough, and Louisville, Louisville's always going to be tough as well. But, if you can get momentum early, I don't know. These Kentucky fans, they are pumped for this season. So, some of them might be thinking win the East. I don't know. It depends on how they start. We're always going to have a surprise team. And if Mark Stoops is really able to get this team turned around from 2-10 in 2013, that'll be huge.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about the Kentucky schedule? You're probably not even picking them to go to a bowl.
No, I think they're going to be my sleeper in the
East.
Yes, I'm their sleeper team right now.
A few weeks back, a while back, I shot you down on that until I saw the schedule. The schedule is very manageable.
Mm-hmm.
I can see, no disrespect to Mississippi State, a scenario where they could get all the way to the Georgia game November 18th if the ball bounces right with one loss.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen, because I don't think they're going to be that damn good.
Yeah.
But I could see them, really, all these games are winnable, except for Florida. And if they could shot the world, they beat Florida. But Mizzou's winnable. State's winnable. Tennessee's winnable. They got a new quarterback. Mississippi, definitely winnable, especially by November, they may have already collapsed.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows? And then you get Georgia and Louisville at the very end. Vandy, that's winnable.
Mm-hmm.
I like how the schedule sets up for Kentucky. I really do. You avoid a lot of those teams that are difficult in the West.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to see them in Atlanta if you get there. So you be ready for that.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, are you ready to call our guest?
Yes, let's give him a ring.
Okay, give me just a second here. Just a second here, folks. All right, you want to pull that up? Pull the computer closer. Hey man, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing outstanding. Real quick, if you would, please tell everyone who you are and what you do.
I'm Nick Roush. I cover Kentucky football for Kentucky Sports Radio. You can find all my work at KentuckySportsRadio.com. Cover football, basketball, recruiting, all of it in the most ridiculous manner possible. It's a great website, one I'm sure you'll appreciate, Steve.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for your time, for coming on. And how excited are you guys for the season to start this year? And especially, what is the hype like around the football team up there?
Oh, it's been pretty wild this offseason. When you beat the Heisman Trophy winner on his home football field,
yeah,
people lose their mind.
Yes.
And Kentucky returned 17 starters. Now, one of them just got injured this week, Cole Mosier, senior left tackle. It was a brutal injury, but, people are really excited. There's a great home schedule this year. You got a chance to end the losing streak to Florida. Vinny Snell's a sophomore who came off a 1,000-yard rushing season. And Steven Johnson improved throughout the year. So if they can take care of the football,
yes,
it can be one of the best seasons in Kentucky history. Could be the first time since 1984 they get 8 regular season wins.
Wow, that'd be awesome, man.
Hi, how are you doing, Nick? This is Brian, Stingray's co-host.
How's it going, Brian?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm fantastic.
Well, the one, elephant in the room we have to address is, of course, that game that comes in late September, Florida. When was the last time Kentucky beat Florida?
30 years ago, well before I was even thought of.
Stingray wasn't born. I was 2. So, do you think they have a good shot to finally end that streak this year? Because I know you almost did it in 15 or 2014. That was the year I think y'all were gypped on the call, the 3 OT game. Do you think they really can do it this year?
So I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. But if Kentucky, I think the bigger streak they need to keep on is that South Carolina streak. They beat them 3 years in a row. If they can beat South Carolina on the road, that's a tough place to play. South Carolina has gotten a lot of hype in the preseason with their quarterback, Jake Bentley. If Kentucky wins that road game, I'll be confident going into Florida because I don't really know where their offense is. They've always got a great defense, but I don't know where the points come from. They're still the team to beat in the East. I mean, they've won it 2 years in a row. But when you got home field advantage, it's alumni weekend that weekend. So Randall Cobb and John Wall are going to be at the game. If you've got those two guys, a packed stadium, the atmosphere is ripe for an upset. And this team, they learned how to win close games last year. There's a chance. I'm not willing to put my money down and say they're going to beat them right now. If they beat South Carolina, I'll be confident. I am confident, though, that they can beat Tennessee. I don't know what Tennessee's going to do. I don't know how they're a preseason top 25 team.
Right.
They don't have any offense. They lost a ton of players. And nobody has done less with more than Butch Jones.
Yeah. Go ahead.
One last thing. I told Stingray just looking at this, he said you guys a few weeks ago, probably a month ago, called Kentucky as a sleeper, his sleeper in the East. And I told him, I said, you're crazy, man. You're crazy. And I looked at the schedule. I really like how the schedule breaks for you guys. So let's say that one or the other, you drop South Carolina or you drop Florida, maybe not both of them. Let's say you only lose one of those games. Eastern Michigan, that should be a win. Missouri's manageable. Mississippi State, no disrespect to you, Stingray. They won last year.
Yeah.
That's a manageable game. Tennessee, Ole Miss, they're on probation. They could be season lost by then. Vandy's winnable. Man, if you guys get a couple wins and some momentum early, you could roll into Georgia between the hedges with maybe 1 or 2 losses. That would be huge.
I think the biggest thing for this team is it's a very back heavy schedule.
Yeah.
So, and that helps if you get a little bit of confidence. You got some time. You got a bye week in the middle of the season to prepare for that game in Mississippi State. Because playing in Starkville is not easy. Like my first trip down there, I was hearing cowbells for the next week. It was brutal. And Kentucky does not handle running quarterbacks well. Nick Fitzgerald gashed them last year, and they were lucky to get away with the win at home. It's very possible, but they got to build a lot of early confidence. You're right about Ole Miss. I don't know where they're going to be. But that Vanderbilt game, that's another game, too, that's going to be tough. I mean, they haven't – I mean, Ralph Webb is really good. They got a good defense. And Kentucky struggled on the road down there. I mean, they should have won 2 years ago and gone to a bowl game, but, pissed down their leg and let that one get away. So I like your confidence in this. I hope you can get a little bit more. But with a lot of experience, there's a very good chance, especially if you knock out Florida, that – you could go into that Georgia game playing for the East. Now, I'm not going to put on my blue-tinted glasses and call my shot now, but, there was a point last year where if they don't drop a pass against Georgia, they're first in the East with 3 weeks to go. So there is a chance that Kentucky can be that dark horse team, and I like Kentucky as a dark horse team better than South Carolina.
Yes. Well, let's go ahead and start with the first game of the season, a game that y'all should not have lost last year. How much of a revenge factor goes into that game when y'all go down to Hattiesburg?
I think there's a lot in play there, especially because Southern Miss's offensive coordinator used to be Kentucky's offensive coordinator, Shannon Dawson. So after blowing that lead, they've obviously grown a lot since then. But it's not going to be easy. I'm glad it's the first game of the year because it's there's a little bit of shock factor. I know it's going to be a packed house. They're going to be tested early. Ito Smith, the running back's really good. It's a 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock kickoff Central Time. It's going to be 1,000 degrees in Hattiesburg. It's not going to be easy, but it's a challenge that if they punch back and if they can stop the run, Southern Miss doesn't have proven quarterback play. They put a little bit of pressure on them and can prove that they can somewhat slow down Ito Smith. They should run away with that game in the second half with a very deep offensive line that goes 9 deep.
Well, right now, based on we've talked about the schedule and everything, where do you think Kentucky ends up at the end of this season record-wise?
I'm calling 8 wins.
Okay.
I don't know how. Let me see if I'm not going to tally them up in front of you and be boring like that. Because I'm really hoping for the Florida game. Just because we're dying to get that win. But there's going to be a slip up here and there. I don't think you're going to go down between the hedges and pull off anything against Michelle, Chubb, and Eason. But I think 8 wins is a good spot to shoot for. It's not we're going to win the East and make history, but you're still making history. You've got a lot of solid pieces there. I think Kentucky's going to get to 8. Now, how they'll do that, it all goes through those first 2 road games at Southern Miss and at South Carolina.
Right. And one final question, I have to ask this because I've been asking everybody in the East this question. Who do you ultimately have representing the East? Are you going Georgia or are you going Florida?
The thing I worry about Georgia, because Georgia makes sense on paper, but their offensive line struggled last year. That was their biggest kryptonite, and then they lost their 2 best offensive linemen. And I don't quite trust Kirby Smart as of yet. And Florida's proven they can win without quarterback play. So, the reason why it's still going to be Georgia, though, is because Kentucky's not going to be able to beat Georgia between the hedges. But I think Kentucky can get Florida, and that'll be the game that slips them up and is the one chink in their armor that prevents them from winning the SEC East.
Okay. And then, of course, in the West, obviously, do you have Alabama?
Yeah, you can't pick against Alabama. And I don't trust Coach O in year 1. LSU's really young. And Jared Stidham's unproven. So if Gus Malzahn gets that thing turned up, it could be a battle for the SEC West Championship in the last game of the year. But I still, you take Saban all day.
Okay.
At what point do most of the Kentucky fans switch over during the season to basketball mode?
I don't think so. Big Blue Madness is usually, I think it's their bye week. They've scheduled it to where it's their bye week every year, and it's that middle of October, right ahead of Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm.
But in theory, Kentucky can be 6-1, 5-2, and I don't think fans are checking out right away.
Yeah.
Especially if you have Tennessee on the horizon and you can beat them.
Uh-huh.
But if you lose to Tennessee, if you lose at Mississippi State,
They're going to start worrying about basketball.
Yeah, then the eyes kind of turn that way. But what's helped is that the Louisville game is the last game of the year, and people always get fired up for that rivalry game.
Yes.
Yeah, I was actually in Kentucky this past weekend from one of my cousin's weddings. I got some family up in Elizabethtown, and
Nice.
I was just told we got into talking about basketball, and man, a lot of my uncle, his friends said they're still not over that 38-1 season.
You had to bring that up.
I did, man. I was heartbroken for you guys too, because they kind of got me really since from a young age to that 96, 97 team into Kentucky basketball. I was wanting 40-0 just as bad as you guys. It was rough.
It was crushing, but I'll tell you what though, Stingray, your friend Big Cat has helped me get over it.
Right.
I don't hate Frank Kaminsky as much as I used to.
Yes.
I kind of look like him. I don't think it's that bad, but you're right. It's always going to be tough, but Calipari finds a way to reload every year and make it a great time to be a Kentucky basketball fan.
Hey, if it's any consolation to you, I'm a Bama grad, huge Bama fan, and I've had to endure the kick six for I don't know how many years. So if that's any consolation, I know how you feel, brother.
Hey, I'll tell you what though, that kick six game too, that's one of those you always remember where you were when you were watching it.
Oh yeah.
And we were in the old UK press box before they renovated it, and the TVs are on delays in certain sections of it, and I was watching and I was like, wait, this isn't real, is it?
I was saying the same thing. I thought, there's got to be a penalty. Where's the flag?
And then I heard people screaming at the other end of the press box. I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. It was unbelievable.
I think I remember walking outside and just like pouring out my beer and going to bed. Like that was the end of the night. I couldn't even drink that one off.
No, it's a tough one. Steve, I got to ask you before we go, how are you? Are you confident about Kentucky, Mississippi State? They've been pretty. Obviously the Cats won it last year, but you got Nick Fitzgerald back, but you lost a lot. How are you feeling about that game?
Well, it's homecoming. We scheduled golf for homecoming, and our record against SEC teams at homecoming is not great, so I'm a little nervous about that.
Yeah, no, I hear you, but I'll be down there for that game in Starkville, so hopefully we can meet up. And I won't ring a cowbell, but I will be kind. I promise you that.
Awesome. Well, hey, man, real quick before we let you go, is there anything that you would like to preview that's coming up, or how we can follow you guys on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Roush, like Roush Racing, the Roush Mustang, at Roush KSR.
Okay.
And online you can check out all my work at KentuckySportsRadio.com. We're currently doing position previews. We also have a podcast on iTunes.
Okay.
It's really great. We do 2 a week. Just look up Kentucky Sports Radio. You'll find all that there. And I appreciate you having me on, Stingray.
Hey, man, thank you.
Honor.
Thank you. And hopefully we can do this again.
Basketball season, maybe.
Basketball, and then, of course, the week of Mississippi State and Kentucky.
Awesome.
Of course.
All right,
it's been
man.
a lot of fun, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Nick.
Okay, bye-bye. Well, dude, that was pretty awesome.
That was a fun interview. Always fun to get people's perspectives on the kick six.
Yes.
There'll be stories about that from now on. A lot of Bama fans are like the Kentucky fans, still don't want to talk about it.
Yes.
But that's sports, man. Just sometimes we get the opportunity to be on the other side of me and Nick's experience here with Kentucky. You probably remember that night. I was pretty upset about Kentucky too.
You were. You threw a temper tantrum and went to bed.
I did because I wanted to see 40-0. I don't think that's something we're ever going to see again, because I don't think a college basketball team will ever be as talented as that Kentucky team.
No.
But we'll save basketball for a few months. We'll have a basketball preview later on too, around the once the football regular season ends,
Right.
Before the conference play starts. So we'll save basketball. But you know, as far as football goes, we talked a little bit about the kick six. Now, what has there been a game like that for you that just a loss you can never get it out of your head? What game has really stuck with you that you just don't want to talk about as far as being a State fan?
Probably 2014 Alabama Mississippi State. We number one in the country.
Oh, we had that game the whole way though.
I know. What I'm saying was, but we jumped. You know,
Yeah, I
we
know.
dropped down 19-0 in the first quarter, and it was
Y'all
just
came
like,
back. It was what, 25-20?
yep,
Yeah.
it lost by 5, and so I was like, man, if we hadn't messed up and got down 19-0, it might have been a different story. But I mean, we were like deer in the headlights that time.
Yeah, Bryant Denny, I think they came out. Bryant Denny's pregame, for those of you that have never been there, they do the Bear Bryant, dun 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 dun.
Right.
And it'll make the hair on your neck stand up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think State was deer in the headlights because that place was packed, college game day.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it was a little too much. Even experiencing, when they got college game day and the whole atmosphere at Starkville against Auburn, they were at home. Going on the road to Bryant Denny was just
too much.
That was a season where they really needed to have Bama at home.
Yeah.
And maybe they could have got past it, but yeah, I do understand where you're coming from.
And then, of course, 17-16, Mississippi State drops. 2010 to Cam Newton's return to Starkville. That one hurt.
That was one of the first games of the season before Cam Newton really got big.
Yes, and look.
Y'all almost took him out the second game.
I know, and look, Leon Berry had the ball right in his hands from Chris Ralph and dropped it. It went right through his hands. That one hurt, man.
Yeah, they just got better from that game on.
Yes.
Auburn did. But yeah, I do remember that.
It was like 17-16 on a Thursday night, and of course I was in class and I didn't skip, but I had it on my phone.
Most people don't remember that part of the Cam Newton season.
Right.
Most people remember
the LSU game.
Well, the first glimpse of oh shit, they may be doing something was that Clemson game.
Oh yeah.
They should have lost, and then they started pulling out the Kentucky game. They had to win by a field goal. And by the time they got to LSU, Arkansas, they were damn near unstoppable.
Oh, yeah.
South Carolina and the SEC title. You weren't beating them then. You needed to knock them out early.
Well, Spurrier.
Bama had a chance to beat them.
Spurrier, you remember South Carolina.
I'm not over that game either.
Right.
Don't even talk about the comeback.
No. Remember Steve Spurrier had 2 chances to take them out. Because Stephen Garcia went to Jordan Hare before they went to Mississippi State. And Stephen Garcia fumbled the ball there late in the game, and Cam Newton went down the field and scored.
They played Clemson. I don't have that schedule. They played Clemson the first game.
And then
that South Carolina was the game
second.
they really should have lost.
Yep.
Now, South Carolina didn't have a shot in the SEC title. It was like 59-10.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, but yeah, man, if you really want to watch the season, I don't care who you're a fan of, you really want to watch some games that went down to the wire in some fantastic play, go watch some of that Auburn 2010 season. I don't care if you're a Bama fan, whoever. I mean, you don't have to watch the Bama game if you're a Bama fan.
Yes.
But they really pulled some stuff out of their rear ends. Auburn did that year.
But I tell you, the easiest game they had, and that was Ole Miss that year.
Oh,
that was the easiest game. Yeah.
Ole Miss only had
3 wins, maybe.
Yeah, 2 or 3 wins.
That was the easiest game, and then the worst game was obviously the Mississippi State game or whatnot.
Okay.
But anyway, you ready to talk Florida now?
Yeah, let's talk Florida. Switching gears.
We're gonna call. You just passed it, I think.
Yeah.
So all right. So what we're going to do now is we are going to call one of our good friends at Gator Scott on Twitter. His name is Scott Carter.
All right, let's do it.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, Steven, how are you, man?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing well.
Real quick for the viewers, can you tell us who you are and what you do, please?
Yeah, my name's Scott Carter. I write for FloridaGators.com. Been there about 7 years, and before that I was a long-time writer for the Tampa Tribune, covered a lot of different sports, but I've been at Florida now for 7 years.
I got you. All right, well, first off, obviously the Florida Gators had 6 players that were suspended for the Michigan game, and including Antonio Callaway. What can you tell us specifically about that whole situation?
Well, I mean, those guys, there's actually 7.
Okay.
Callaway being the big name. Those guys aren't available for Michigan. Right now, they're not participating in practice or in team activities. So obviously, they still have some issues to resolve before they return to the team. And Callaway is by far the biggest name of that group. Really, of the 7, only 2 are expected to contribute right away, and during the season. And that's Kevonis Davis, a defensive lineman, is the other. If you follow Florida football closely, Antonio Callaway's been their top offensive playmaker the last 2 years. Unfortunately, he's had a lot of issues off the field, and he's one of those guys. When he's on the field, the Gators are better, but they're not going to have him around. And we're still a lot of details still yet to emerge, Stephen, about if the suspension is going to last more than one game, if he's facing a more serious disciplinary issue. Only time's going to tell on that. Jim McElwain spoke about it Monday at his press conference, and he kind of just gave the basics. These guys made bad choices, bad decisions, and he's obviously frustrated with Callaway and disappointed because he's given him some chances, and I think the fan base now is kind of, is this another chance, or what is exactly his future?
Yes. Well, going into that Michigan game, who do you see as the starter at quarterback? Do you think it's going to be the transfer Zaire?
At this point, I don't really think so.
Okay.
Just from what I've seen, I think it's really between Felipe Franks and Luke Del Rio.
Okay.
And that's not to say that Malik Zaire won't play, because he does give a different total look than those 2 guys do. He's getting his reps, but most of them have been with the third team right now. I mean, even though he came in, knowledgeable of the playbook, I mean, it always takes time to adjust. And he didn't get to school here until, June 26th. He's been on campus only about six weeks. So, he's still adjusting, but he's fit in with the team nicely. The guys like him. But Felipe Franks, he left the spring as kind of top of the depth chart. And I do think he's really improved some over the summer. I think he took this challenge the way he should have, and he's looked a lot better to me during camp. And then you got Luke Del Rio, who a lot of people have counted out. He's almost like the forgotten man, because he was 5-1 last year as a starter, got beat up, had a couple of shoulder surgeries in the off season, missed spring. He says he's healthy, and from what I've seen, he looks healthy. If they can give him protection, he's definitely a guy who has command of the offense with his background with McElwain and Doug Nussmeier.
I got you. Well, game by game, how do you see the Michigan game coming out now with those players being out? Do you think Florida can ultimately win that game, or is it going to be very difficult?
Well, it's definitely a bigger challenge, without Callaway. Do I see it being a mismatch or something just for the loss of Antonio Callaway? Certainly not. I mean, Florida, they're ranked 16th in the coaches' poll. Michigan's 9th. So both teams are in that area of the poll where there's a lot of question marks.
Right.
The winner might jump up a little bit. If Florida wins, they'll probably go in the top 10. If they lose, they'll drop down pretty good. And it's the same for Michigan. I mean, they're in the top 10. They may jump up a couple of spots. So I think it's really an interesting test, because you got to remember both coaches, Jim McElwain and Jim Harbaugh, they're both entering their 3rd season. These teams met at the end of their first season, and Michigan was clearly the better team that day in the Citrus Bowl. But I do think Florida's improved their depth a lot, and I think have more talent than they had that game. Michigan's coming off losing 18 starters, so it's all going to be interesting to see how it shakes out there in Dallas, Stephen. But I'm looking forward to the matchup. But I don't think it's a mismatch either way.
Okay. Well, based on the schedule, at the end of the year, where do you have Florida sitting? Do you have Florida making it back to Atlanta?
I think it's very possible. I'm certainly not counting them out. I know Georgia is the favorite. You know, Tennessee's right there in the mix, too.
Sorry about that.
One of the advantages, they do have Tennessee at home this year. Georgia's always in Jacksonville. It's kind of the same story, Stephen, really the first 2 years of McElwain's tenure here. I don't think anyone saw this Florida team as a giant, as good as maybe they turned out to be. But they made it to Atlanta both times, and they kind of got exposed by Alabama, which a lot of teams have in the last few years. I think they're right there in that hunt again. I think they can get to Atlanta, but to do so, they're going to have to, win Tennessee and Georgia, or at least get some help if they don't. And then stay healthy, find that quarterback.
Yes.
That's really been their issue.
Hi, how are you doing, Scott? This is Brian, Stingray's co-host. And I just had a question for you. Why do you think it is? We talked a lot about the Eastern Conference. We were talking about it a couple weeks ago. I mean, at this point, it's basically been like, who's going to be Alabama's next victim in Atlanta? Like, what do you think the East has to do this year for people to really take them seriously? Because honestly, I felt like the past 2 years, it's going to start as far as Florida with the quarterback position, but I felt like the past couple of years, nobody's felt like Florida even had a chance to win the game in Atlanta. So if we get a three-peat, we get the third rematch. What do you think will have to happen differently for them to be taken, the East to be taken seriously?
Well, I mean, if it gets that far, I think that means Florida has gotten some good play at its quarterback, and because that's been the big question. It's not why they lost the last 2 years to Alabama. You got to remember Austin Appleby last year. I think he threw 3 interceptions in the first half. So it's certainly, last year, the year previous, they played better, but they still weren't there at the quarterback position. That can solve a lot of problems for this program, because I think the defense has lost some talent. And I think they may have to develop along the course of the season, but there's enough good players there that they should finish ranked among the best in the SEC in defense again. But it's going back to, can they find a quarterback that can run the system that McElwain wants, utilize all these playmakers, and just basically return to kind of old Florida offense, making some big plays. I mean, that's where they've really struggled, making those big plays in key moments. And the biggest one I can think of since he got here was obviously the win against Tennessee in 2015. Callaway catches that touchdown late. That was, I think, from Will Greer, who's no longer here. Treon Harris is no longer here. So year 2, it was Austin Appleby and Luke Del Rio. Appleby's no longer here. Del Rio's coming back off some major surgeries. So again, you're looking at a new quarterback. But if one of these guys can stabilize the position, I think they can be pretty good.
I got you. Well, ultimately, I know obviously you write for Florida and you cover Florida. Do you have them winning the East, or do you think it's Georgia?
If I had to pick right now, I'm thinking Georgia's probably the favorite right now. But I'm not counting Florida out by any means. And there's just the same kind of big question marks at Georgia. But they have that one piece that Florida doesn't, and that's Jacob Eason right now.
Yes.
To me, it always goes back a lot of times, guys, to the quarterback. And, if you can get that good quarterback play, man, it makes such a difference. And if Florida can get the kind of quarterback play that they need, I think they've got a good offensive line, probably the best they've had under McElwain. He's even said that multiple times this fall. The receiver and the skill players have really built depth there. Jordan Scarlett's a top-tier running back. It sounds like a beaten horse, right? But it does go back to the quarterback.
I got you. All right, man. Well, thank you for your time. And is there anything, before we let you go, that you would like to preview, like how we can find you on Twitter and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, just follow on Twitter. It's simple, @GatorsScott. Pretty much put all my work there and keep people informed on what's the latest here in Gainesville. So that's the best route to take.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you for your time, and hopefully we can do it again before the season starts.
All right, guys. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much. You too. All right. Bye-bye. All right. Well, that was pretty good, man.
Yeah, I felt that he gave us a lot of insight, and he's not the last Florida guest we have on today.
That's right.
So
yes.
we have another Florida guest coming on, so it's important that we save some of our questions for them.
Yes.
But yeah, I think he was spot on about Florida needing better quarterback play. You know, we're kind of beating a dead horse at this point.
Quarterback.
As soon as quarterbacks are very important, but it seems like ever since Will Grier got suspended, Florida has struggled.
Yeah.
Will Grier's at West Virginia now?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's, I think people have nearly forgotten about him. He's been gone so long. You know.
Taking the PEDs, and that hurts, man.
Did he lose a year now? Is he a junior all of a sudden?
Think so.
Yeah, he couldn't redshirt on those, so still has 2 years left. But yeah, I think that Florida's got to have some better quarterback play. The last 2 years against Alabama, they came out of a watered down East, and with Trayon Harris the first year, and then Appleby last year. I don't think it would have went any differently if Del Rio was in there.
No.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I know they didn't want to pull Felipe Frank's red shirt last season because that was very important. They were doing as well as they could do. It's important not to ruin him early and play him too early.
Yes.
But I do think Franks will be the starter.
Okay.
Because I think Florida's looking for some new blood. I think Zaire's going to end up regretting and saying, why did I transfer here? Because he's going to end up never getting the shot again to be a starter in his senior year.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I think this was a very bad move. He should have went to a team, maybe a smaller team, without a very good quarterback play or a proven starter. So I don't think I would have done that if I were him, because we've known Florida probably redshirted Franks last season because they really wanted to bring him along. So,
do you want to tell people about our website?
The website is www.msustingray.com. We just last week since we all talked last week. Last Wednesday we posted a new article by our feature writer Lawrence Dockery, and if you go on to the website under feature stories, you'll be able to see the article he wrote last week on the top 15 quarterbacks for 2017, and we just posted a little over an hour ago the top running backs of 2017 article. So that should give you guys a little insight on who to watch for this season. A very good articles. He's a good writer, so you guys can go and check those out on the website. Who do you feel like are your top QBs going into the season?
Obviously, you got to go Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I'm gonna get the camera back off of you. Sorry about that. Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson. Obviously, you could throw in there Nick Fitzgerald. And, you know, Darnold, the kid out of UCLA.
USC.
USC, sorry.
Rosen, the SEC hater.
Yeah, I don't know about him.
He said that if the SEC had to take, well, more specifically Alabama.
Yeah.
Well, I think that speaks for all the SEC but Vandy.
Yes.
Because a lot of us have the same academic standards. Florida and Georgia are a little bit higher.
I got you. All right, man.
But yeah, he said we wouldn't be able to have a team if we
That's so ridiculous.
raised our academic standards. We can't all go to UCLA.
That's right. All right, bud. Well, are you ready to talk with Scott Smith?
Yes.
All right, buddy. Let's go ahead and call him right now.
I thought you said Scott Stapp.
No,
earlier.
Scott Smith.
Oh, I thought we were going to have Creed's links.
No. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. We are back. We are here with Scott Smith, the sports director down in Tampa, Florida. How are you doing today, Scott?
Doing great, Stingray. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And real quick, would you please tell everybody how you are affiliated with the TV station down there, please?
Well, I'm the sports director at Fox 13 in Tampa, Florida, and been there for about a year and a half now. And so we just kind of guide the coverage of our sports team and covering all our college teams throughout the year, as well as the Bucks, Rays, Lightning, all the usual suspects.
Well, man, that's awesome. Well, let's go ahead and start off with the big news that broke a couple of days ago. Some of the Florida players were suspended, including Antonio Callaway. What can you tell us about that situation?
Sorry, Stingray. Broke up just a little bit. Can you repeat that?
Yes. What can you tell us about the 6 players that were suspended this past week?
Yeah, this is a real tough break for Jim McElwain's crew because this was the year that they were going to start out with a bang, and that offense was supposed to return, and to come into that Michigan game week 1 and not have one of their key playmakers, Antonio Callaway. This is a significant drawback for this team. What had happened was this group of players, they were taking their student ID cards that have scholarship funds on them, using them to purchase items in the bookstore, and reselling these items for cash in order to make a little bit of money on the side, which of course is a big no-no in the NBA, and rightfully so. These guys were slapped with a 1-game suspension. And for Antonio Callaway, who's such a big part of this offense, I mean, this really hurts this team, and he has made mistakes in the past, and I think he's running out of chances with this Gators team.
Absolutely. All right, well, who do you think is going to be the starting quarterback week 1 when they take on Michigan?
I'll tell you what, Jim McElwain has held his cards pretty tight when it comes to the quarterback battle, and he's not giving anything away. During practice, they're trying to even out the reps and give guys first-team run, but between Del Rio and Malik Zaire, who transferred in from Notre Dame, and then, of course, there's the sophomore Felipe Franks. You know, Franks is really pushing for that starting job. I think a lot of people just assume that Zaire is going to come in because he's maybe the bigger name, came in from Notre Dame, and he really is an explosive offensive weapon. But Felipe Franks, both on the field and off the field, is showing ways that he can be a leader. He's a little bit more vocal. A lot of great reports out of Gainesville throughout the offseason, dating back to spring practices, about how Felipe has really grown. So I think it's really going to be a tight battle between Zaire and Franks. If I had to put money on it at this point, I would say Zaire probably starts the season under 7.
I got you. Well, some of the media actually picked at media days Georgia to win the East. How do you see it? Do you think it's going to be Florida again, or do you think it's going to be Georgia?
I think that's just how McElwain and his crew wants it.
Yes.
Pick Georgia again. Pick another team to win the East again. That was the same story last year with Tennessee. And,
yes.
Georgia is a talented bunch, but I think that for Florida, the missing component, they're losing a lot of starters defensively, but they always seem to restock pretty easily on that side of the ball, and I think they're going to do it again this year, especially their secondary. Offensively is really the question mark with this team, and I understand why voters would be hesitant to pick them to win the East because you have an unproven commodity at quarterback, and the offense was really bad last year. But one of the things that they're going to return this year is a lot of speed, and McElwain was saying that this is going to be kind of the old Florida teams that could run it, and they could really blaze down the field and show some of that speed. So I think that's going to return this year. I think we're going to have a more complete team, and I have a hard time not picking Florida to win the East again.
Well, if they do win the East, and let's say they meet up with Alabama, do you think now with the speed that is returning, do you think it's going to be a more even matchup in Atlanta?
That's another leap altogether. I think getting past the whole Alabama wall, the fortress, that's going to be another task, and I don't think they're ready for that.
Okay.
They may be a year or two away from really challenging Bama. But at this point, now I say Alabama wins the SEC. That's no big surprise. I mean, everybody else is on board with that as well. But I don't think they have the guns. I don't think they have the bodies up front to really challenge this Alabama team on both sides of the ball yet.
Okay, and finally on Florida, where do you see them finishing record-wise?
That's a good call. I mean, it's tough to kind of give you a number at this point. I would say that this is a team that will probably register, I'm going to say, between 2 to 3 losses on the year. The good thing for the Gators this year is that a lot of those big games are going to be played actually in their own backyard. So that's going to be a sizable advantage. I mean, it's never a cakewalk through the SEC. Of course, kicking off the season with Michigan, that's a neutral ground game, but they have LSU at home, they have Tennessee at home, they have Florida State at home. So those things are going to work into their advantage. But at this point, I don't know. If you had to pin me, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 losses.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move to another team in Florida, Florida State. And actually, you're going to interview Jimbo today, aren't you?
That's right. I'm actually in Tallahassee right now. We're going to sit down with the head coach probably in about an hour or so and chat with him about how the season is going. Of course, this is a team that is pretty solidified at the quarterback position themselves. The defensive side of the ball, they are absolutely stacked. They lose to Marcus Walker, which I mean, that's a big piece. But they get Derwin James back, and this is a team that is loaded on the defensive side of the ball. And offensively, they have key holes to fill. What are they going to do with Dalvin Cook now gone? Is a guy like Cam Akers ready to step into that primetime role at running back? They also lose their top 3 receivers from last year, so those are question marks. But everything we've seen so far out of camp is that DeAndre Francois is really taking another step this season. Just crisp, accurate passing, leadership capacity too. And some of the rough patches we saw out of the Seminole team to start the season last year really started to smooth themselves out toward the end of the season. And they finished the season like they were national title contenders. And so that's going to be interesting to see how they come out of the gates this year. I mean, it's going to be a Goliath right from day one in Alabama up there in Atlanta. So we will see. We will see with this team. But, for either side, and I think Alabama's probably going to take game 1. But I think that still does not throw Florida State out of the national title talk. I think, especially because it's a week 1 battle, they have plenty of time to recoup and hopefully get through the ACC without maybe more than 1 loss.
So are you predicting Florida State to be last year's Clemson, in which they just completely annihilate everybody in the ACC?
I don't think they're going to annihilate everybody in the ACC. The ACC is still very tough, and it's getting better. So they have a tough road ahead as well. I do think that they're going to come out of the ACC on top, and that's kind of the easy pick at this point. Florida State, Alabama, national title. But, there was a lot of national title talk last year around Florida State, and, they were still young, obviously. They had a freshman quarterback, but those dreams got squashed pretty early on in the season. I don't know. I would say probably Florida State is a team that can get there. They have the talent on both sides of the ball. They have the coaching in Jimbo. So, I would say that's probably your odds-on pick right at this point in the season.
And one final question. How do you see Mark Richt and Miami doing in the ACC down there?
Oh, they're an improved bunch. He's definitely turning this team around, and they're on the upside. I think they're going to have to obviously replace the quarterback position, but he's recruited well. He's got some horses there, and they're going to be a scary bunch this year, no doubt. The Hurricanes are. So, I think that it's going to be an interesting battle. They will lock horns with Florida State at some point this year, and we will see that could be for ACC supremacy.
I got you. Well, Bud, thank you for your time, and how can people follow you on Twitter?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter, Scott Smith TV, at Scott Smith TV. Also on Facebook, Fox 13's Scott Smith. And we do a lot of fun stuff throughout the college football season. This Saturday, we're going to run a college football preview where it's sit-downs. If you're interested in Florida football, and that means all the big in-state teams, we're doing extended coverage with sit-down interviews from USF's Charlie Strong. Of course, they're a top 25 team to start the year. Jim McElwain, we caught up with him a couple weeks ago. We'll feature our sit-down with him, and then, of course, the Jimbo Fisher interview that we're doing today. So that will be available on social media. As soon as we get done with it, it's going to air this Saturday at 6:30 East Coast time, and it'll be on my Facebook page, again, Fox 13 Scott Smith.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you for your time, and enjoy the interview with Jimbo Fisher.
Will do. Thanks, Stingray.
Buddy, thank you. Okay, bye-bye. All right, buddy, I thought that was outstanding, and Scott Smith is an outstanding guy. I was actually on his show last year for the newscast previewing the Alabama-Clemson game, and so that's how we connected. And, of course, we want to thank Scott for coming on, and I just wonder how that interview with Jimbo Fisher is going to go, though.
Oh, yeah, it should be interesting. Why didn't you ask him about South Florida?
I was just talking about the big three.
They're supposed to be one of the sleepers and win the AAC. And a lot of people talking about South Florida down in Tampa possibly making it into a New Year's Six bowl. Hey, don't sleep on any of the teams from Florida this season.
Yeah.
Man, and then you got Lane Kiffin and the Owls.
Yes.
Florida, I got to get my Florida Atlantic T-shirt because I got to jump on the bandwagon. Can you believe that they got? Can you believe that they got 4 televised games, and one's on a channel called BN or something?
Wow.
I've seen it, but I don't know what their regular programming is. Kind of like those games that'll come on women's soccer on Lifetime. I'm surprised they didn't put Florida Atlantic and Lane on Lifetime channel, but they do have 4 televised games nationally.
Wow.
So Lane Kiffin's done something for the program, but now it's time to, show the product, the finished product on the field. But yeah, you got them, and I think that Florida football is going to be exciting this year. All the teams in the state of Florida.
Except Central Florida, maybe.
Maybe they'll be good. They had a big turnaround under Scott Frost. After going winless, they made it to a bowl last year. So I'm big on Central Florida, too, but not that big.
So it's just going to be interesting.
Florida International will be bad.
Yeah, probably.
They probably will, yeah.
I got you. Well, you got anything else you want to add about Florida? I tell you, man, that Michigan game's going to be pretty big, though.
Oh, yeah. I think it's going to hurt them, losing those players. I was saying Florida at first, but, man, I think Michigan will win that one. I really hate it, but I do because I just – that's a lot of players. Callaway's really going to hurt.
Right.
If they can find another receiver to step up, maybe they can be in that game and maybe win it. But I'm going to go with Michigan on that one.
Oh, yeah.
But that has no bearing on the SEC East standings. So,
yes.
There's a lot of teams that – lose the first game, they get it turned around, and I think that'll be Florida.
Mississippi State lost the first game last year, but never got it turned around.
They lost every game nearly.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Right.
But
watch out, all of you people out there. Watch out for those South Alabamas.
Yeah,
especially you, Ole Miss.
Yeah, that's right.
South Alabama is for real.
In every sport too.
Yeah.
Especially football and baseball.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, what else do you want to, since we have a lot more viewers on here now, would you like to tell everybody about the website again?
Go to www.msustingray.com. We've got featured stories from our newest writer, Lawrence Dockery. You can find our shows on there. All the Stingray rants will be there. A lot of information. We're going to be having a newsletter that's going to come out for you guys soon, or those of you that sign up on the mailing list. It's on the homepage.
Subscribe.
Yep. What'd I say?
No, I'm just telling you that's what you click on.
Yeah, click subscribe. You can put in your email address, and you should get those. It'll tell you what's going on with the show. It'll tell you, what appearances Stingrays are going to make, and if he chooses to make any. And it will also tell you sometimes what Stingray had for lunch.
Sometimes, yes. I don't know about all that. We ain't discussed that.
But yeah, check out the website. It's a work in progress, but we feel like it is making a lot of strides. So, it's not just about Stingray. It's about college football, and we try to just give you guys our take on, couldn't find the words right there, on what we think about football, because we're, football, basketball, baseball, we're sports lovers.
Yes.
And we want to share it with you, even though, don't think that we're really credible opinions. So
well, we could be.
We could be one day.
Yes. All right,
Thank
guys.
you guys.
Yeah, thank you for the time. And next week is actually going to be, today we talked about 2 East teams and
We
completely
got 10 down and 4 to go.
Yeah, and so we completely forgot about the West a little bit today, but next week we are actually going to be talking about a West team, and we were talking about this earlier, Brian, earlier last week. It is either win or you're done. We're talking about Sumlin and A&M next week.
The hottest seat on the earth we will be talking about next Wednesday. The hottest seat on the earth.
Butch Jones may
Put
be
your
there
feet
too.
to the fire.
Butch Jones may be on that hot seat like that too, though.
Yeah, but it's not that hot yet.
You don't think so?
Not as hot as Sumlin's.
Okay.
Because the AD publicly said that he has to win now. You know, they basically preheating the oven.
So next week will be A&M, and then of course we'll talk about Derek Mason and Vandy.
Derek Mason and Vandy,
who actually did make a bowl last year. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, Derek Mason, I doubted him 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, 3, I apologize, 2014. And then he won 2 games. I said, man, this guy's never going to replace Franklin.
Right.
And the next year, I think they got 3 or 4 wins. Last year, bam, they're in a bowl game.
And beat Tennessee, man.
How many, what they win, 6 games?
Yeah, something like that.
7?
Yeah, or something.
Just to make sure. Yeah, 6 and 7.
Yes.
They beat Tennessee and Ole Miss to make the bowl game after it looked
and
like
they killed Ole Miss too in Oxford.
They did. So it looked like it was another lost season, but they turned it around and made it to a bowl game. So
yeah, so we'll be talking
I would actually, like it if I could get up there for the Bama Vandy game.
Yeah.
This year, I've never been up there. Nashville's a great place. Maybe we can pull it off.
I got you. Well, man, I guess that's going to do it. So next week, tune in for A&M and Vandy. And is there anything that you would like to add before we send off for this show, Brian?
No, like us on Twitter, the Stingray Show, and
at the Stingray Show.
At the Stingray Show, and go to our website.
And we're working on a Facebook page.
We're gonna have a Facebook page up too, and we hope to do some live videos from that. Both
from
Stingray and I, it'll be from football games. Doesn't matter where we're at. We may have something to say and say, well, just do a video.
Yes.
So look for the Facebook page coming up soon.
Okay. All right, buddy. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Stingray Show. We want to thank you for being loyal to us and continuing to be on the show. And we are going to leave you with our pretty awesome sound-off music.
Who sings it?
Instrumental. Hail State.
Roll Tide.
God bless.